Now I have this really cool calculator project. I want to share it with the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to GitHub. To me, it's going to take me directly to a logged in page because I have logged into my GitHub account, but you should sign up for Git if you have not already. GitHub, just so you know what that looks like. I'm going to open this in an anonymous browser, and this is what it looks like. You should pick your username and have an email, et cetera, et cetera. Once you get here, I want you to click the plus sign up here and say New Repository, okay? And we're going to call it the FEM example, front-end masters, and this is an example. Okay, I'm going to create a public repository for the intro to web dev, v2. Okay, public repository. I'm going to ignore the README. You have to be a premium member to get private repositories, but don't be afraid of putting public repositories out that are garbage. If you look at mine, I have like 100 repos, and about 75 of them are garbage. So that's fine. It's okay. Yeah.
So how do someone going into your GitHub account that's wanting to offer you a job, potential employer, how do they waddle through, the garbage versus what's actually good?
I think people would have differing opinions on it. So you have pinned repositories.
Okay.
So if you go to my page right here, this is like my profile page. Look at that beautiful smile. These are the ones that I'm more proud of. So these ones I've pinned to my repository. Anything else is you have no guarantees that it's going to be anything good. Okay, so I'm going to say create repository. I'm not going to check that. So I'm going to create this repository. Repository is like one atomic project. So that's what they call them, is repositories or repos often. Okay. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm just going to copy this command right here. This git remote add origin git. So a remote is Git is decentralized. So if you and I were working on the same project, in theory, we don't have to go through a server. I could push to your computer. Most people don't use it like that. Most people have a centralized place to put their code, but you don't necessarily have to. That's why there's this concept of remote, is because you could have multiple people and you're all pushing to each other and stuff like that. It's just not very common. Okay, so git remote add origin, and then I'm going to add this URL right there. And I'm going to say that, okay? So now if I say git remote -vv, you can see that I have this new remote to push to. So it's a place to push my code. So what I'm going to do now is, because I have commits to push, right? I'm going to say git push origin master. Master is the name of the branch. If you want to learn more about branching and stuff like that, definitely go check out Nina's course or read another tutorial on this. But right now we haven't branched off of anything, and the default name of the branch is master. It's the master branch, right? It's the overall master of the project. So I'm going to say git push origin master, and it's going to take my code and push it up to GitHub. So now if you go here and refresh the page, you can see that I have this repo, and you can click in here, and you can see my calculator.js and all that kind of stuff. So definitely keep all of your code on GitHub. I do for sure. It's really nice because if I ever lose my laptop, which I have done before, I can get it all off of GitHub. If I want to collaborate with you, you can click up here and fork, which is the name of I'm interested in modifying your code for my purposes, or I want to improve your code so that I can use it, or things like that. You fork it so that you can modify it, because you can't come in and change my code. You have to ask me to change my code. But if you fork it, you can modify your own copy of it. So that's what forking is. You can also come in here and star it, which is just a social feature. It's I think this is neat, star, right? And then you can watch it as well, which is a way of if you're interested in the progress of a repo, you can watch it. It'll give you notifications. Make sense? So I would say this is the modern programmer's resume, is what their GitHub looks like. Okay. Oh, pull requests. So let's say I find a bug, right? Like for example, if you found a typo with this particular course on this course website, which there are a lot, I've seen them. If you go to my github/bthold/intro-web-dev v2, that's where all of the code for this particular website lives. It lives here, right? So if you come in here as like, hey, this is broken, you can even see here, people have been opening pull requests today. Thank you to the people that have been opening pull requests. So if I click on here and I say fix typos on line 64, good person. So I can see that Brandon, thanks Brandon, notice that these edits might be needed to make. So he fixed some of the repos. So I can actually go in here and see the commits that he has made. So I can go in here and see what he's changed. So here I said image instead of imagine. So he fixed that because he read my mind. And I'm pretty sure 3 has 2 H's, Brandon. So I'll let it slide this time, but yeah. So obviously, these are useful things. I should fix this. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to say merge pull request because his code is valid and it should be in the repo. So I say merge pull request and confirm merge. Now my repo is updated with his changes. It's all merged together. And I'm going to say, thank you. Thank you. I can spell. So that's how like the process works for incorporating new code, right? So what he did is he forked it, he modified it, and he opened what's called a pull request. And then I looked at his pull request and I merged it into my code.
Does he work with you, or is that just for fun?
He's just a nice person. I've never met Brandon.
First-time contributor.
To this repo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, really cool, right? Though it's collaborative. We get to make all this stuff together, and there's just nice people out there doing things because they're nice people. But that's the promise of open source, right? Like, I'm putting all this stuff out there for free, and in return, people make it better for me. So that's kind of like your reward for putting stuff out there for free, is because other people get to see is like, oh, okay, if you do it this way, it gets better. In fact, I put out a little thing here called, if I go back to my profile, called PostCSS Colorblind, which is a little repo for changing your website to see what a colorblind person would see your website, right? So down here you can see an example of like, here's how it would look, how your CSS would look if you were a normal seeing person. This is what it would look like if you had this particular disability. And here's what it would look like if you couldn't see any color, right? So this was something I threw together on a weekend because I was curious if I could do it. Really cool. And then I just got busy and I couldn't update it. There's an awesome guy named Ben Briggs who works on PostCSS itself, and he came in and fixed all of my stuff for me and opened a giant pull request and fixed everything, right? So these kind of things happen. Like if you invest in the community invests in you, which I think is really cool. In particular, I think the JavaScript community is pretty friendly. So it's something that's you should definitely, try and get into. And don't have a lot of fear. Just go out and open pull requests. And sometimes they'll say like, hey, if you fix this, then I'll merge it. Or sometimes they'll say like, this, I'm not going in this direction, so thanks for opening it, but I'm going this way. Or you can see here, if we go back to my other repo, there's people open issues. So this person says, hey, I'm getting a lot of issues. I'm seeing these kind of things. And then I can come down here and say, oh, maybe try this, right? So that's what issues are. They're just saying like, hey, maybe I don't know why this is working or this is broken, or maybe you should add this feature. It's kind of collaboration on the future of your projects. So GitHub is great. You should definitely get in on it. There's also GitLab. There's also Bitbucket. There are several places you can put your code. There's Visual Studio's Team Services, which is the Microsoft version of it as well. So,
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So with all this, how it's open source, it's really nice because then everybody can get together and work on something. But with the ability to fork it, what's to stop somebody what if I work on something for like 10 hours, okay, and I put it on GitHub and I'm really proud of it and going to show it to a future boss maybe. what's to stop somebody from forking it and being like, haha, this is mine, I did this?
The answer to your question is nothing. But there are kind of things you can do to put in place. So like, for example, something that I do, if you come here to Intro to Web Dev and you look here, I did put a license on this, so you can attach a legal license to your project. This one in particular is attribution non-commercial. So I spent a ton of time on this particular course, and it would be really crappy if someone else made a lot of money off of it. So this code and this content you can share for free forever to everyone. But if you make money off of it, I can sue you, right? So you can attach license to things. So that's your retribution. Most people, so the code that I have on this, so the content is licensed differently than the code. The code is Apache 2.0, and that's, you can modify this. You can say, I wrote this, I don't care. I actually really don't care. I spend a bunch of time on writing the code, but that's not the important part to me. So for the most part, all the code that I put out into the world, you are free to fork, bastardize, claim, make money off of. All of these things are fine. The only thing that you can't do is sue me, and that's what these licenses provide for you. So I want to answer your question in multiple ways. It's like you can do things to prevent people from forking your code. You can actually disable the fork button on here as well if you want to. They can still get it, but it's a sharing environment, right? Like, so I make a lot of money, and I make, like, at my job working on top of things that people have built, right? Like, I work on Linux a ton, which is the work of a ton of people, and I don't pay them anything, right? So the only thing I can do to pay that community back is to release things that I do for free. So whatever I can, I open source, because I believe in the community. I believe that it moves humanity forward, as cheesy as that sounds. Does that answer your question? Cool. Other questions?
How do you go about getting a license?
You can go to choosingalicense.com, choosealicense.com, which is also from GitHub. They put up this website. I want simple and permissive. It's going to give you the MIT license. If I'm concerned about patents, which is, I always do this one personally, Apache 2.0. And I care about sharing. So you might be more interested in something like this, which is you can fork this and you can modify it, but you have to open source anything you do. Legally, you have to open source. You can close source anything with mine. So that's why I always choose Apache 2.0. But like if you fork Bash, for example, which is what we've been using, you're actually legally obligated to open source any changes you make. I'm not a lawyer, so do not take any advice from me whatsoever. But that is my understanding thereof. There's more choices down here if you're interested, but these are kind of the three common ones that I see. I don't actually really see very many people do copyleft, which is what you would call this. I see most people do MIT, and I think Apache is a superior license, so I personally choose that. But MIT is far more common.